Child is a human being. He has inherent, indivisible and inviolable rights, and he is entitled to enjoy all basic human rights, since human rights are those minimal rights which every individual must have by virtue of his being a member of human family, irrespective of any other consideration. Child is physically, psychologically and mentally immature human being who constantly depend on adults for his development and existence. Children are the most vulnerable section of society. They can easily be manipulated physically and mentally. Even though they are physically, psychologically and mentally immature, the future of human civilization lies on the shoulders of the children. They are not only immediate progeny of parents, but also an important asset of nations. They are the potential embodiment of our ideals, aspiration, ambition, and expectations. They are like tender plants which need proper nourishment to grow. Child enjoys special support from society where he lives in. Every family of society pays special attention to the pregnant woman with the view that she is procuring human being. Having realized the needs and essentialities for protection of child, including unborn child, international community has started initiating to adopt international standard for promotion and protection of the rights of child by adopting declarations and a convention on the rights of child from the early part of 20th century. The Convention on the Rights of Child provides a universally accepted definition of child as a person who has not attained the age of 18 years. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1948, is the basic international statement of the inalienable and inviolable rights of all members of human family. The declaration is a milestone in the history of human rights movement. The declaration provides two special provisions for promotion of child rights. Article 25, Para 2 of the declaration states that motherhood and childhood are entitled to a special care and assistance. The article further stipulates that all children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. Article 26 of the Declaration provides right to education of every individual. The article further provides that education shall be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. Child as a human being is entitled to enjoy all rights set forth in the Declaration. It is also found that special protection and promotion has been accorded to the child under the Declaration. In order to have an effective realization of the rights and freedoms set forth in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966 and International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966. Subsequently, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted first and second optional protocol to ICCPR in 1966 and 1989 respectively. These international human rights documents are commonly known as International Bill of Rights. These covenants have created legal obligation on the part of the high contracting member states. The covenant pays special focus on child and seeks to safeguard the right of child. In Article 6, Clause 5 of the covenant prohibits imposition of death sentence for crimes committed by persons below the age of 18 years and such penalties should not be carried out on pregnant women. The covenant provides that every child shall have, without any discrimination as to color, race, sex, language, religion, national or social origin or birth, the right to such measures of protection as are required by his status as a minor on the part of his family, society, and the state. There are 3 articles in the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights 1966, which recognize socio-economic and cultural rights of child. Article 10, Clause 3 of the Covenant prohibits discrimination of children in the matter of special protection and assistance, and provide for the prevention of economic exploitation of children and young persons. The article further stipulates that their employment in jobs that are harmful to their development should be punishable by law, and that the states should also set as limits below which the paid employment of child labor should be prohibited and punishable by law. The Covenant recognizes free and compulsory primary education to all. The secondary education shall be made generally available and accessible to all, every appropriate means, and in particular by progressive introduction of free education. The General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the Declaration of the Right of Child in 1959. It was the expression of the international concern for special protection of rights of child. The UN General Assembly adopted the Convention on the Rights of Child in 1989. The Convention is not only a comprehensive international human rights instrument on the rights of the child, but also lays down the solid foundation for protection and promotion of rights of the child. It represents the best ever articulation of child rights, setting high standards and procedure for the well-being of children everywhere. It is also unique in its nature, since it is applicable to both in the time of peace and the conflict. It has 2 parts comprising a preamble and 54 articles, out of which 41 articles are substantive and the rest deals with the implementation measures and the miscellaneous provisions. The Convention is based on 4 cardinal principles, namely non-discrimination, best interest of the child, right to life, survival and development, the respect for the views of the child. The rights set forth in the Convention include right against discrimination, right to life, survival and development, right to home and nationality, right to preserve identity, nationality and family relations, right not to be separated from parents except through lawful procedure, right to enter and leave the country for family reunion, right to freedom of expression, right to freedom of thought, conscience and religion, right to freedom of association and peaceful assembly, right against arbitrary or unlawful interference of privacy, family, home or correspondence, as well as unlawful attacks on his or her honor and reputation, that is, right to privacy, right to special protection and assistance, right to receive appropriate protection and humanitarian assistance by the refugee children, right of the disabled children to special care, right to health and health care, right to social security, including social insurance, right to adequate standard of living, right to education, right of the minority or indigenous children to profess and practice their religion, right to rest and leisure, right against economic exploitation. The Convention articulates 5 sets of basic rights, namely civil and political rights, social, economic, and cultural rights. Part 2 of the Convention provides for the establishment of the Committee on the Rights of the Child. The committee is a body of 18 experts bearing high moral standing and recognized competence in the field covered by the Convention, which monitor the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of the Child 1989. The reporting system is the only implementing measure available under the Convention. The state parties shall undertake to submit the report on the measures they have adopted, which give effect to the rights recognized in the Convention and on the progress made on the enjoyment of those rights within 2 years of the entry into force of the Convention, and thereafter every 5 years. The report shall indicate factors and difficulties, if any, affecting the degree of fulfillment of the obligation under the Convention. It shall also contain sufficient information to provide the committee with or comprehensive understanding the implementation of the Convention. The Committee on the Right of Child shall submit reports on its activities once in 2 years to the General Assembly of the United Nations through Economic and Social Council. Article 45 of the Convention provides that for the effective implementation of the Convention and to encourage international cooperation, the committee may invite specialized agencies, UN organs, and the UNICEF to be represented at the consideration of implementation of such provisions as they would fall within their respective mandates. The World Conference on Human Rights held in Vienna in 1993 urges states to withdraw reservation to the Convention on the Right of Child, contrary to the object and the purpose of the Convention or otherwise contrary to international treaty law. The conference also calls on states to integrate the Convention of the Rights of the Child into their national action plans. The General Assembly of the United Nations also adopted 2 optional protocols to the Convention on the Right of Child in 2000, so as to supplement the Child Rights Convention. Article 38 of CRC, that is Child Rights Convention, refrains state parties from recruiting any person who has not attained the age of 15 years into their armed forces. The article further obligates the state parties to respect for rules of international humanitarian law which are relevant to child. The article has been subject to considerable criticism for 2 reasons. First, because all other provisions of the Convention protect child until he or she attains the age of 18 years. Second, because the provision adds nothing new and could even undermine existing standards contained in international humanitarian law. The optional protocol has raised the age of possible recruitment of persons into armed forces and their participation in hostilities. The protocol sets the age limit for direct participation in hostilities and compulsory recruitment at 18 years, and prohibit insurgents and armed groups under any circumstances from recruiting persons under 18 years or using them in hostilities. The International Committee of the Red Cross welcomes inclusion of non-state actors in the optional protocol, but regrets imposition of moral as opposed to a legal obligation. The optional protocol on sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography 2000 supplements the convention by providing state parties with detailed requirements to prohibit and make an end to sexual exploitation and abuse of children. It also protects children from being sold for non-sexual purposes, such as other forms of forced labor, illegal adoption, and organ donation. It also obligates the governments to criminalize and punish the activities related to these offenses. It requires punishment not only for those offering or delivering children for the purpose of sexual exploitation, transfer of organs, or children for profit or forced labor, but also for anyone accepting the child for these activities. The protocol stipulates that state parties should undertake appropriate methods in order to guarantee the protection of children from sale, prostitution, pornography, economic exploitation, and the performing any work that is likely to be hazardous. Child is invaluable asset of mankind because of the fact that the continuity of century-old human civilization would not be possible without them. On the other hand, children are the most vulnerable section of the society as they are unable to express for themselves, and because of which they always depend on adults in all respect. Realizing the need for protection and promotion of child rights, the UN General Assembly adopted special declaration and a convention for children. The declaration and the convention are adopted because of the fact that the provisions for promotion and protection of child rights contained in the International Bill of Rights are not sufficient for the effective promotion and protection of child rights. Declaration on the Rights of Child 1959, Child Rights Convention 1989, and the two optional protocols to CRC, that is Child Rights Convention, are the special declaration and conventions adopted by the UN for child rights. The Convention on the Rights of the Child 1989 has been signed and ratified by almost all countries of the world except few countries like USA. The convention represents a turning point in the international movement on child rights. This comprehensive document contains a set of universal legal standards or norms for protection and the well-being of children. It also gives children their basic human rights, which enable them to realize their potential fully. In all cases, the implementation of the provisions of Child Rights Convention 1989 solely depend on willingness and the cooperation of the state parties.